Hey everybody, real quick before I get started, I want to tell you guys about something new that I'm trying out. I started a new Discord server. It's called One Mic. There is a link to the Discord in the episode description, and there will continue to be a link in the episode description for all subsequent videos. The reason I want to do this is because I wanted to give us all a space to collectively talk about all of the shows that I'm covering so we don't have to talk across each other in the comments or maybe miss some comments or miss some replies. I think it's a good place for us fans who are fans of the shows that I cover, fans of this channel, whatever that may be, for us all to get together and just kind of like talk about the show. So what I did was I created the server and then I created channels within it for each show that I'm covering at that time. Right now it's set up to cover the, I think, 4 or so shows that I'm covering right now, and then I've added channels for shows that I'm going to be covering in the month of December that I know for sure. And then as I'm covering shows will cycle in and out. So like once I'm done covering a show, a channel will be deleted, and then once I start covering a show, a new channel will be added. So check out that Discord. I look forward to talking to you guys, and now let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 6 of HBO's The White Lotus, entitled Abductions. Now, I think the obvious abduction here is Lucia, but I think there's a lot of, like, metaphorical abductions to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about those because I want to tell you guys at the top of the video that I plan to actually save theorizing. You know, we haven't really talked about theories too much, a little bit last week with my Greg theory, but we haven't talked we haven't talked about theories too much, and that's because they've been doing such great work with the characters in these stories, and we've kind of been focusing on what's going to happen with these relationships. But there's a lot of theories to be made going into the finale, so what I've decided to do is I'm going to do an entirely separate video just for theories. So I'm going to drop my theories on where I think these storylines are going to end up in the finale, who I think is going to die and be killed, or die and be killed, who I think is going to die or be killed, and who I think might kill or attempt to kill someone else. So all that good stuff. So I'm going to go over this episode in this video, but I'm going to save the theories for another video, which I am going to record after this one. So it will be out later today, just so you know. You don't have to wait until like Wednesday or something like that. It's going to come out today. So I want to start by talking about the couples first. In the opening scene, Ethan is upset because Harper doesn't really believe him that he didn't do anything on the previous night. And, you know, he tries to kind of like flip it back on Harper, like, oh, how dare you don't believe me? I've never lied to you. We've always been able to be honest with each other and all this kind of shit. And it's very much, you know, she says later, you know, stop gaslighting me. I think he's very much doing that. You know, she says, well, actually, before I get to that, first she ends this scene by saying that she believes that they're not attracted to one another anymore. And I think that could be kind of a foreshadowing of like what I'm a little bit less into my idea that Ethan is gay for Cameron. I'm still there, but I'm hedging a little bit. But her saying they're not attracted to each other anymore and Ethan seeming kind of like flustered by this, it does still kind of think like maybe Ethan's questioning his own sexuality. But the way this episode plays out between Ethan and Cameron doesn't really feel like there's fucking on deck. So I'm not gonna totally withdraw that prediction, but I don't feel as good about it anymore. But I will save that for the theory episode. So they end that scene or that moment by saying that they love each other, but shortly thereafter, Ethan is confronted by Lucia about the money that they're still owed, her and Mia. And I think the scene serves 2 purposes. One, I think it informs Ethan that Cameron didn't pay what for them, at least for the kind of people that they portray themselves as, he hasn't paid a very small amount of money. And that's the first thing that does. And then the second thing is that it lets him know, Harper sees them talking and it lets her know that he is still having some sort of, I don't want to say relationship, but from her perspective, he's like, yo, there was nothing here and it's over and it was no big deal. And now she sees him talking to them. And that's just not going to be a good look. So, and it also kind of serves as proof that he's hiding something, especially from Harper's perspective. She's going to be like, oh, he's downplayed this whole thing, but now here he is talking to both of them. So I'm going to fast forward quite a bit here over things that don't really matter to the points that I'm trying to make. after Daphne Daphne wants to get a massage. She leaves. Ethan goes for a swim. Cameron asks Ethan to come to the bar and have a drink. Ethan says no, so that's when he goes swimming after that. Harper agrees to go because we can tell Aubrey Plaza's been making all the faces. We can tell she's fully on some, all right, this is what he's going to do. Fuck him. Game on. It's on. So she's been making those faces, and she makes like this devilish, like, kind of face. And she's like, I'll go to the bar with you. So her and Cameron go to the bar. Ethan goes for a swim. The first time he looks, he sees Harper very clearly flirting with Cameron. And the second time he looks, they're going all together. So he looks at his phone. He has a text from Harper saying that she went to go get a hat. He kind of like hurriedly runs back to his room because he's rightfully a little bit suspicious of what's going on here, especially given everything he already feels about Cameron as far as how Cameron, goes after all of his women and shit, dating back to college. And he gets back there. The door has like the safety latch on it, so even though he used his key, he can't open it. Harper is on the other side, just like, hold on a second. Few seconds go by, he's banging on the door. She opens it. He's walking around, very suspicious. He notices that the door that connects his room to Cameron and Daphne's room is open. He asks about that. She's like, yo, I don't know, what the fuck? Not a big deal. I got my hat, let's bounce. They leave out. At the same time they're leaving, Cameron leaves out. And he's just like, hey, wait up, guys. Here I come. And then now all three of them are leaving together. And I want to talk about this chain of events here, because my belief is that Harper did not have sex with Cameron, and that this was something that was orchestrated between the two of them to fuck with Ethan. Now, I don't know if Cameron, I think, has proper motivation to fuck with Ethan, so I'm still kind of like hedging on that. But I do not believe that what Ethan is envisioning, this idea that they were having sex in his room, and when he got there, Cameron ran off, and Harper, got back ready again and then opened the door. I don't think that's it, because they lean too heavily into Ethan asking, were you in my room? Was he in our room? The idea that Harper was in Cameron's room never is broached by the episode. So I'm sitting in one of two places. One, they did have sex. Well, I don't want to give out my theories, but one, actually no, I'm gonna save that theory. I'm gonna say that they did have sex theory. And then my other thing is that she didn't do this at all. I mean, she didn't have sex at all. She just set it up to make it look like she did to fuck with Ethan. But I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more in the theory episode. I'm actually slightly lightweight pissed that I mistakenly dropped that right here in this episode, but in this video, I should say. Later, Ethan confronts Cameron about this, and I would genuinely believe. I think this is before the whole. They were in each other's rooms. I can't remember where this falls into the thing. But Ethan confronts Cameron about it. Yeah, it was, because he asked him if he was in his room. Ethan confronts Cameron about it, and Cameron is so shocked. And I would genuinely believe Cameron's surprise if he hadn't been touching Harper's leg in the last episode. So I have a lot of theories about how this is going to end up. So you're definitely going to want to check out the theory episode for that. And I really hate that I gave away my nothing happened and Harper's faking all this to fuck with him. But I'll talk about that in depth in the theory episode. And moving on to the DeGrassos, and I believe I called them the DeGracios last video, but don't worry about me. Albie decides he's gonna bring Lucia as a translator for their trip to their home or homeland, home city, whatever. They find out that there's actually a family in that town that goes by the name of DeGrasso. So they're assuming like, okay, these people got to be our relatives, right? But on the way there, that Alessio guy is following them. And I gave that theory last week that I thought like, she hasn't mentioned having a pimp this whole time. This must be all part of like a long con that she's going to do to get money out of Albie or whatever. But then the fact that this guy is following them, I'm like, okay, I thought he was just like somebody else who maybe owed Lucia and or Mia some money. And she was having conversations with this guy, but then going back and telling Albie that it was a pimp so she could kind of like work an angle to get money out of Albie. But like a guy that just owes her money ain't gonna be following her around like that. So now I'm like, okay, wait, is this really a pimp? And then also now I'm like, even if it is really her pimp, does that mean still that this is not a scam? Like this could still be a long con. But like, I don't know, man. I'll talk about it in the theory episode, but I feel like there's two simultaneous potential long cons, and this could be one of them. But I don't know, man. I'm super not confused, but I'm floating between whether or not Lucia actually genuinely had. Well, let me stop there. I do believe she genuinely has feelings for Albie. I just don't know if she's also using that to try to get money. And I think now Alessio is actually like a pimp or her pimp or at the very least in on it. I don't know. It's just they've done. Lucia has done an awful lot to con money out of Albie, if that's what the game plan is. To the point of like, if she's trying to con money out of him, I might sit there and be like, you did way too fucking much for not a lot of money. Like, that was a lot. But once they actually, once Alessio shows up, I'm already kind of like, okay, maybe this is legit. Lucia decides to go with him, and I just want to say, why was she sticking her head out the window like a dog when they were driving by? I'm like, her ears flapping in the wind. Like, why is she doing? Like, I understand you want to do the look back, like, oh, she's looking back lovingly. But all I saw was a dog. Like, why is she sticking her head out the window like a dog? So she leaves with Alessio, but once the DeGrassios get to the house, they no longer have their translator. There's a language barrier there. They get threatened. They end up leaving. And I have to wonder, what was the point of this whole thing? We're gonna go here to this city and try to meet our ancestors. For them to get there and have it resolved so underwhelmingly, like, what was the point of that whole plot line? Because what I thought was that they were gonna build up to, and then Lucia coming along as their translator for me confirmed this, but that like they were gonna be related to Lucia. So like they were gonna get there and find out that like these people, these DeGrassios that they were visiting, were actually ancestors of Lucia. Like they're like her great grandparents or some shit. And they're like, okay, now Dom has fucked a relative of his because he can't control his sexual deviation. Albie is now fucked a relative of his. Actually, I don't think Bert saw her naked. I think he only saw Mia naked. But like that would make for something interesting, right? But then they snatch Lucia, not snatch literally, but they take Lucia out of that potential scene by having Alessio show up. And then they get there, you run off a couple of funny moments where the woman's waving artichokes and shit, and they leave and nothing comes of it. And I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, what was the point of that whole thing? And I'm like, and to be fair, something could still come out of it in the finale. But that really does that not feel like an unnecessary plot point now? Like, what was the point? Like, I don't know. And that's not to say that I feel that there was no point just because my thought of Lucia being related to them didn't pan out. One, it could still happen. But two, it's not about the fact that my theory didn't plan out. It's about the fact that like I can't figure out why this whole season is kind of built up to them, getting in touch with their roots. Then that scene happens and it's essentially just played for laughs and they leave. Like I don't know. I don't really get that. I don't really get what the point of that whole plot line was. But there'll be plenty to talk about with the DeGrassios and Lucia. The Grassos, I did it again, and Lucia in the theory episode. So I'm going to move on to talking about Mia and Valentina. Valentina is still mistaking kindness for sexual attraction. And she essentially asks Isabella out on a date for her birthday. Isabella doesn't understand what's happening here. And I think that is because Isabella is just a nice person. So she doesn't understand that in this case, Valentina took being nice as wanting to fuck. And I guess I won't say wanting to fuck. I'm making light of how Valentina really feels. Valentina, it's not just a sexual thing for Valentina. She very much likes this girl. But Isabella doesn't understand where Valentina's coming from, so she agrees. She's like, yeah, it's drinks with my boss for a birthday, no big deal. But as it's time to go, Isabella says that this new guy, Salvatore, that was brought in from the beach, has been flirting with her, just as Valentina accused Rocco of doing. And she requests that Salvatore be moved back to the beach and Rocco be brought back to the front desk because they are boyfriend and girlfriend and are engaged. And this is so upsetting for Valentina that after Isabella leaves, Valentina cancels their little date. And then after Isabella walks away, you just see Valentina standing there like lip quivering, like fighting back what has to be great amounts of sadness. And I love that Valentina projects like a motherfucker, right? So when she saw Isabella and Rocco, she projects that, oh, this girl must not like this guy's advances just like I wouldn't like this guy's advances, so I'm gonna go over here and help her out and shut this down. When in reality, what we were seeing was a couple bantering back and forth, just having a conversation. So now she projects her own feelings on Isabella, moves Rocco out, moves this other guy in, asks her out on a date, and now Valentina has become what she was trying to avoid, which is someone who is being almost like romantically aggressive. And I just think that's very interesting that Valentina has become who she was trying to prevent, because she thinks that behavior is unique to the man-woman relationship. And that's what's really interesting to me, is like, she doesn't see it because I don't think she's consciously thinking this, but like from her perspective, oh, we're two women. Like, this is fine. But if Valentina were Victor and saw that Rocco was flirting with Isabella, moved Rocco out, moved someone else in, and then asked Isabella on a date, there'd be sexual harassment all up and down, all up and through this fucking resort, right? But Valentina does it, and it's fine because she acts like, and I think we even as a society act like, this is behavior is unique to men and women, and it can't happen man or woman. So I think it's really interesting that Valentina has become who she didn't want to be, and is now kind of like, I mean, she's a creep essentially. But let's see, I have in my notes here talking about her projecting. Yeah, so after she's hit with this terrible news about Isabella actually being a heterosexual with who is engaged to a man, Valentina decides she's gonna have a night at the bar, and she's getting drunk. And Mia comes up, who's been playing the piano, because you remember she's subbing in for the for the pianist that she almost killed. And Valentina's like, I've never been with a woman, and Mia offers to help her with this, and they go to a vacant suite on the second floor to make it happen, and it does happen. And all I can think of, man, it's gonna really suck when Mia asks for some form of payment the next morning from Valentina, who is completely probably looking at this as something that is like, oh, this nice girl is doing me this favor, when we've already established that Mia is now very much using sex as a means to get what she wants. So she's not gonna ask for money, but she's probably gonna ask for a permanent job. Valentina's probably not gonna like that. And then also, they've already established that these two have this horrific habit of, in their mind, agreeing to a transactional situation and telling no one, and then after it's over going, where's my money? Like, no, that's not how this works. We didn't agree that I was gonna pay you for whatever's gonna happen here, but we've already established that that's what they do. So like, I feel fairly certain that's what's gonna happen, and I'll talk about that in the theory episode. Moving on to Tanya. First of all, she doesn't tell Portia what she saw with Jack and Quentin, and I feel like Tanya is comic relief, but Tanya is a very self-absorbed, selfish asshole. She's just not purposely or even aware that she's an asshole, but she is very much an asshole. And not telling Portia about that, asshole move. But she's so flighty that I don't think she even understands that that's something that she owes Portia. She's dating this guy. They're spending a lot of time together. She probably should know that he put his dick in some other guy's ass. She should probably know that. But I don't even think Tanya realizes that not telling her is a dick move. So she's just too unaware. But Quentin has quite the night planned for her. It includes his words, not mine, a well-hung guy named Niccolo, and bags of cocaine. And that's what they do at their party. Lots and lots of cocaine. And eventually it comes down to the time for Niccolo to clap them cheeks. And while he is, I don't know what he's doing, getting ready. Well, at the very least he was getting naked. We don't know what else was going, but at the very least he was getting naked. While he's out of the room, Tanya sees a picture on the table of two cowboys. She doesn't really react. Obviously, this is kind of like pat on my back. It's not for sure what's going to happen here. And again, I will save my thoughts for the theory episode. But like I said with my Greg theory last week, as it now becomes very clear that was Greg in that picture. That was young Quentin in that picture. Greg is the cowboy that Quentin was referring to. And I think it's safe to say that it's probably also the person that Greg was talking to on the phone that Tanya kept seeing. So I'll talk about that in the theory episode, but I do want to pose to you guys, do you think that she recognized him in that picture? And assuming that she did, will she remember that she saw that picture? Because she did so much fucking coke. I don't know what next morning Tanya is gonna be like. So, questions for you guys. I'll give what I think in the theory episode, but we shall see. Next up, Portia and Jack. I'm going to talk about them, and then I'm going to close out with a couple of thoughts. So Jack takes Portia for a day out on the town, and it's very obvious very quickly that the goal in doing this is to keep her away from the party so that Quentin can do whatever he needs to do with Tanya. While they're out, Jack gets increasingly drunker and thus increasingly more obnoxious. I think his allure has started to wear off on Portia. She's getting kind of sick of him. But once he's drunk, he provides all sorts of information about Quentin. That's a mighty level of drunk. Like, he was drunk enough to really not know what he was doing, except for remembering that he's supposed to keep Portia away from that party. He was able to stick to that goal no matter how drunk he got. But he gets so drunk, he talks about Quentin's about to come into some money. Quentin saved him from a dark hole. Quentin's not that rich. He was about to lose one of his houses. And Portia's like, wait, his family's house. She's like, his family, isn't that your family? Like, Portia's starting to catch on. There's something amiss here. Of course, I can't even give you a theory for what dark hole Jack was in, but I do have a theory for essentially what is going on here. And I will talk about that in the theory episode. So, closing with a couple of thoughts. Bert teasing Lucia's job on the car ride, I thought was actually kind of funny. Like, the fact that everybody in the car knows what Lucia's job is, and no one in the car can acknowledge what Lucia's job is because they all don't know that each other knows. And then Bert kind of like pressing that, like, oh, what do you do? Like, that was some good stuff. I thought Jack's outlook on life was interesting. How Portia talked about how the world sucks, and he basically says, like, you know, there was medieval times and people hacking each other to bits, and now things are kind of orderly. And he's like, we're living at the best time in human history, in the best place to be. And if you're upset with that, you're always going to be upset. And I thought it was an interesting take on an outlook on life. I don't know how I necessarily feel about it. I like the positivity of it because he's right, but I don't like the idea that I should be thoroughly satisfied with the current state of this country because it's been worse before. Like, things having been worse in the past doesn't make present conditions acceptable. And I'm not even making Portia's argument. I'm just saying things were worse in the past, or things are worse somewhere else, are not adequate reasons to justify shitty present circumstances. So if I'm complaining about America and somebody says, oh, well, they can't do this in blah, blah, blah country, that doesn't make what's happening here any more acceptable. Just like him saying things were worse back in the 1600s doesn't make how Portia feels about today any more acceptable. So I see both sides. And then lastly, this is weird. Daphne thinks Timothée Chalamet is hot, and I'm like, isn't he like 14? Like, I don't know how old he is, but he looks 14. That's really weird to me for a fully grown adult woman to say that they think Timothée Chalamet is hot when he looks all of 14. But that's all I got for thoughts on this episode. Let me know what you thought about what happened. But I have more coming up in this theory video episode. I'm going to give a theory on what's going to happen with Portia, Jack, and Quentin and Tanya. I'm going to give a theory on what I think is going to happen with the couples. I'm going to give a theory on the Grassos. So I have theories on all of these things. And I just think that dropping a theory episode right prior to the finale, I think, is a good place to do it. And I don't want to make you guys wait for it since I've teased it and I've kind of like I mistakenly put some of my theories into this video. So I'm going to put it out later today. So I will see you guys for that. And then I will see you guys next week for the finale. And until then, peace.